Hello everyone, welcome to this e-lesson on multimedia analysis as part of EIST6130 Instructional Multimedia Development. So as part of this e-lesson, we're going to look at three objectives, explain the terms needs assessment and front-end analysis, describe 10 types of front-end analysis proposed by Lee and Owens, and then we'll explain instructional component analysis. You might have covered several of this in instructional design and are already familiar with it. In that case, I hope this is a reinforcement to you as you develop your multimedia projects. Needs assessment and front-end analysis. So needs assessment and front-end analysis is part of the analysis phase. You know, we've seen the ADDIE process before, so there's the analysis phase that's highlighted. So you do both needs assessment and front-end analysis according to this. You see this visual, you know, those are the two aspects of analysis. So what is needs assessment? Needs assessment is a systematic way of determining the gap that exists between where the organization is and where it wishes to be. So again, when there is a gap between the optimal and the actual performance, then you want to come up with some kind of an intervention to fill that gap. And you do a front-end analysis, which is a collection of techniques, can be used to bridge the gap by determining what solution will be required. So from Dick and Carey, again, you've seen Dick and Carey's model before. So from Dick and Carey, needs assessment focuses on determining the current state and the desired state and the need that arises from it. So the current state is the actual, what are they doing right now? And the desired state is optimal and the need is the gap. So again, front-end analysis helps you determine how to close this particular gap. So here is an example, so this is from a prior student project. So for example, in this case, the actual performance was traditionally half of all 10th grade English students demonstrate average to below average writing skills. So they were really lacking, right, in their writing skills. But the optimal performance is that students will demonstrate average and above average writing skills. So in the optimal performance, you wanted them to demonstrate the ability to fully develop the ideas, elaborate on those ideas, exercise correct grammar, organize their writing. So you can clearly see, this is what they were doing and this is where you want them to be. So for you to take them from the actual to the optimal, what can you do? So here is like the need. So students need to be given an introduction to the memoir, given foundational knowledge and practice in the use of figurative language. So there were a few instructional knowledge and skills that had to be given to them to move from the actual to the optimal performance. So this is from Lee and Owens. They came up with 6 activities in the process of conducting a needs assessment. So determining the present condition, which is the actual, right? Defining the job and then ranking the goals in the order of importance, finding discrepancies, determining positive areas and set priorities for action. So this is 6 steps they said will, help you in the process of doing the needs assessment. And you might be using a number of data collection techniques to, collect data to understand the needs, to understand the actual and the optimal, and then also to find the gap. So phones, in-person, email, paper questionnaire, video camera, online, observation, having someone talk through it, using the, having someone do the work and so that you can see how it is done. So those are all different data collection techniques that can be used. So again, Lee and Owens also came up with this detailed 10 different types of analysis as part of the front-end analysis, which was included as part of your reading. This was summarized. So we'll quickly look at all the 10. And again, for a multimedia project, you may or may not do all 10, right? You might do the ones that are important for your particular project, but it's good to be familiar with some of these terms at least. I think this is the list, the longest list I've seen in terms of a front-end analysis with the different analysis aspects. So we start with an audience analysis, which is a learner analysis, right? You want to know the background of your learner, the learner characteristics, prerequisite skills that they come with, so all that falls under audience analysis. Then comes technology analysis, which is identifying the existing technology capabilities, because that's important when you deliver, your multimedia instruction. And then task analysis is job-related tasks, performed as a result of the training or performance support. So what are the different things that they do, right? So that is task analysis. Critical incident analysis is determining what skills or knowledge should be targeted in the multimedia intervention or training. And then situational analysis, more like a context analysis, identifying environment or organizational constraints which may have an impact on goals in multimedia design. Objective analysis is writing the objectives for the tasks. And then media analysis, selecting appropriate media delivery. Extend data analysis is anything existing that they have, training materials, manuals, references in syllabi, you review all that. And then cost benefit analysis is identifying costs and benefits and return on investment. In a real world project, this is very, very important, right? If there's no return on investment and if it's very, very expensive, it may not even be worth, doing that particular intervention. So those are a quick look at different types of analysis according to Lee and Owens. So here is instructional component analysis. So this is again a terminology from a different author, Davidson, Shivers and Rasmussen, in their book on web-based instruction. And they use 4 different terms here: instructional goal, instructional context, learners, and instructional content. So instructional goal is identifying the primary instructional goal, right? And then context is examining the environment, learners as learner characteristics, and instructional content is elements of instructional content which are again decomposed into main steps and sub-skills. I wanted to give you another perspective as well to see how, different authors, different researchers use different terminology, but in the end, we are all talking about similar things, right? So here they've broken it down into 4 different elements. Here's a visual of the same thing, so there's the goal and outcome, context, learners, and content, and referred to as instructional component analysis. So what is an instructional goal? So these are general, broad statements what the learner will be able to do once the instruction is completed. And so it provides the designer with a clear statement of learner outcomes and is related to identify problems in instructional setting. Broad, measurable, right, statements. And outcome is an important part of defining a goal, and it also identifies the learning outcome level. So you can look at Garnier's domains of learning and help match with that, but of which particular outcome that is related to what you want to teach. And here's the Garnier's learning outcome. So you might be teaching intellectual skills, or it could be cognitive, verbal, attitudinal, or motor, because depending on what you're teaching, the strategies could vary, right? So that's important. So here is Garnier's different learning outcomes. So even to write your instructional goal, you could be gathering data on the instructional goal. You could be surveying or interviewing subject matter experts and end users to finalize what that instructional goal should be, and then you write a goal statement focusing on what the learner will be able to do and focusing on the performance of the individual learners. Here is an example and non-example of a goal statement. Let's look at the first one. So this is again from Davidson Shivers. The end of the web-based instruction, the learner will be able to describe 5 conflict management techniques. So you can see how measurable it is. Describe 5 conflict management techniques. Whereas here it says the learner will be familiar with ways to resolve conflict management. It's very vague, right? So the vague goal that can't be easily measured. So again, here the learner will be able to explain basic differences and similarities between the different learning theories. Here, the basic differences and similarities will be explained. So it's not written in a measurable manner, it's written more like an instructional activity. So writing it in a measurable manner, learner-centered is very, very important. So goals are also you want to write like SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timed. So specific is very specific when stating the goal, what you'd like them to accomplish at the end. Measurable is again, can the progress and completion be measured? You know that the learners have succeeded. Attainable is again, it should be within your grasp, right? Relatively within your grasp. And then realistic, is it realistic for them to accomplish this? And then also timelines and deadlines are clearly stated and specific. So that's called SMART goals. So moving on to the instructional context analysis, which is the next aspect of this. So understanding the context, the learning context or the environment where the goal will be achieved is also very important. So in our case, we're proposing to develop multimedia projects. So also thinking through what type of a situation the multimedia is delivered is also very important. And then finding out the different elements within that setting is important. So here are some main elements to think through in a contextual analysis. So organizational infrastructure, like what resources available, management functions, organizational culture, ownership of the materials, those are important. Allocation and competencies of personnel is important. And then learner location and technology, where are they doing this from? Are they worldwide? Are they in a certain region, rural, urban, technological requirements, what other utilities and software applications they might need. So all this, forms the contextual analysis. Then comes the learner analysis. So knowing who your learner, right? Purpose of learner analysis, who's your participants is very important. You want to know their characteristics or differences and similarities, because that will help you understand the diversity of the target audience and how it will affect your design development and implementation. So to do a learner analysis, here are some main elements, like general characteristics like gender, ethnicity, age, general ability, education level, work experience, reading level, motivation level, prior knowledge, communication skills, technical skills, other abilities and disabilities, knowing what they come with, and then other learner characteristics are also very important. So to getting to know your learners is very, very important. Then finally is the content analysis. So this is also known as instructional analysis, instructional task analysis, learning task analysis. So now you're talking about the content itself, right? So you talked about the environment, about the learner, about the goal, now about the content. So the main purpose is, you want to identify the skills the learner must perform to achieve the instructional goal. And the second purpose is you develop a learning task map to illustrate the relationship among the major steps and sub-skills. So you have the major skills, and then sub-skills are subordinate or prerequisite skills. So these are mental processes that learners must perform to achieve each of the identified steps. So you need to go through the process and identify the main skills and the sub-skills. So you can ask, the designer should ask questions. So to do this particular task, what does the learner do? What does the learner already know? What does the learner do? And how can the learner achieve this particular goal? So several questions that can be asked to identify sub-skills. So LTM, or the learning task map, it's a graphical representation that shows the relationship between goal, steps, and sub-skills in its final form before becoming part of the design document. So it's like a 3-step process, right? So you have the major steps and sub-steps, and then you break down them into like subordinate skills, and then there are also entry skills or prerequisite skills. So here's again another visual format. So let's start with the 3. If you look at the 3, there's a dotted line. So below the dotted line is these are the prerequisite skills or entry behaviors they come with. And then there are the subordinate skills in step 2, break down into subordinate skills. And then there is the goals and the sub-steps. And then on the top, very top, you have the goal statement. So you can see how it is numbered, right? So there are 6 goals, and then for example, in goal step 2 is elaborated into 3 sub-steps, and then sub-step 2.2 is again the subordinate skills as shown. So it's kind of like layered, so that they can reach the goal in the end. So here's a visual. This was again from a prior project to show you, and that same example I showed you, the memoir writing. So there are the 4, the goal statement and the 4 goals, and then each goals has the sub-steps, and then you also see the entry behaviors, like sub-skills and the subordinate skills, and then the entry behaviors below that particular dotted line. So there are 3 types of task analysis. I wanted to quickly introduce you to these 3. So one is called the hierarchical analysis. So this is a specified order of steps and sub-steps, sub-skills based on a superordinate and subordinate levels. So there are certain skills that gets done first, and then you go back below to the next level. Sub-skills, if they are at the same level, they can be learned in any order. So there is a hierarchy to it, right? So there is a visual, and you can take a minute to look at it, pause and look at it. There are the steps, there are the sub-skills, the subordinate skills, and then there are the entry behaviors. Then is the procedural analysis, which is again a step-by-step process undertaken when achieving the instructional goal. This is easier to construct, right? Because it's just a succession of major steps and sub-skills. So especially if you're working on a procedural knowledge, then you follow a procedure. And then comes combination analysis, a combination of hierarchical and procedural analysis. This has both hierarchical and procedural analysis. And then, oh, there's the combination. So you see both, there's a procedure as well as hierarchical. And then there's something called as cluster. So if it's just verbal information, you're not identifying a sequence of skills, but steps, but then you're just identifying information that is needed to achieve your goal. So in this case, it's like a cluster, all the different information that they need to have to achieve that goal. So diagramming a cluster analysis is, you could do it through hierarchical technique with the goal at the top too, and each major cluster as a substring. You could still draw it like that. So again, how do you draw this? Steps, sub-steps, subordinates. Think about a test item or an assessment and think about the steps the learner would go through to complete it. You can talk to others who can complete the goal and ask what steps they go through. You can observe experts performing the goal. Like, what would someone have to do to accomplish this? Those are some ways you can do this. And again, we've looked at Garnier's categories, right? So if you're breaking down verbal information, then it should be like a cluster analysis. If you're breaking down intellectual or psychomotor, then it will be more like a hierarchy. And then if you're breaking down attitudinal, it will be a hierarchy or procedure if you want learners to think about or do something to exhibit an attitude. So for different types of, learning domain, you could have a different type of a visual. Again, is there one way to do this? No. There could be so many versions of the learning task map. So there's no one correct way of doing instructional content analysis. The process is that you talk to an expert, you understand how it works, and you break it down for the learner so that you can chunk it and you can give it to them in particular chunks. So that's what learning task map is, and we looked at the different components of instructional component analysis. So this reference again, I mentioned Lee and Owens, and we also used Davidson Shivers as well, for the last part of the objective. So here are the three objectives we looked at: explain the terms needs assessment and front-end analysis, describe the 10 types of front-end analysis proposed by Lee and Owens, and then we explained instructional component analysis.